figuring out the companies that I want to connect with, if I'm the best person to connect with the people that I strategically need to connect with, or if I need to find a referral in from somebody that is 1 degree away from them. Because even if you're connected with them, like, look, I've got like 34,000 connections. Even I'm not the best person sometimes to reach out to them because they might have 34,000 connections too. And if Oliver is connected with them and is communicate with them over email, which is a whole nother level, it's like the next step of a relationship, to be able to qualify that and then run it through you. Those are the types of things that I'm excited to see, because everybody's bogged down, everybody's getting spammed. And how do you cut through that noise? I think is really what the swarm's going to allow me to do much more effectively and quickly. My name is Ryan Mulvany, from San Diego, California. I'm most well known for founding a company called Quiver. It was an Amazon agency. I guess it still is an Amazon agency. I talk about it in the past because we ended up growing it and selling it. And where I started learning the power of network was all throughout building it. But what made it really sort of evidently clear is after we sold the business, I sort of walked in there the day after we had sold and looked around like, I don't own any of this anymore, which is fine. How do I add value? How do I continue to add value now that it's in this multi-billion-dollar organization? And I started creating content on LinkedIn about Amazon, the Amazon ecospace, and just sort of put it out there to see what would happen. This original business was spun out of a digital agency, and I really admired not only the founder of that agency, but also one of his lead referral partners who ended up becoming my partners at Quiver. And they were very big on entrepreneurial karma, which was a term I had never heard about, but it was just sit down and talk to people. Don't go at it with sort of any intention. Go in there to just bring value and create connection. And in that, the network started to build. I sort of got known as a guy that they could call and I wouldn't try to sell them anything. It was more so like I didn't really try to sell them anything often because our model was so narrow of who we could actually work with. So there wasn't anything to sell most of the time other than, hey, maybe I could help you out and maybe that's going to help you on your way, which is awesome. And so the referrals we would get out of that, often didn't apply to our model, but we would keep talking to them and keep having fun and learning because even through there wasn't direct business to get out of it. I would learn something often from talking to these companies with a different perspective or a different friendship, or they knew somebody. And so it really sort of opened my eyes up to the, coming into conversations with just an open mind to listen, humility to not think that you know all of the things that they want to have answers for, and just sort of try to create that connection. So over time, the network grew, and then I realized that I could take that same sort of humility approach to creating content online. And so the content was never really about, on LinkedIn, it was never about what we did or how cool we were. It was more so about creating a conversation around what was happening in the industry and to showcase the great work of often our competitors, the best brands that were out there. It was always just sort of like I was fanboying, what people were doing on Amazon, and sort of showcasing it to the public. I've never approached it from like, what is the dollar amount I get out of this? I tend to approach it more from can I connect with cool people, have meaningful conversations with them and add value to their life? And then that indirectly does bring value back to my life, but it's much more of like a long-term approach. Often I've been approached by people and they're like, hey, we can market this thing and make it go faster and do all these things for you. And I was like, I don't have anything to sell. Like, I'm not trying to sell anything, which is, bad for the bottom line, but I think it's good for the entrepreneurial karma, right? And so I think there's a balancing act between those two things. And one thing that I've noticed that I really love is if you look at these creators or comedians or people that have followings that don't necessarily want to be beholden to the algorithms, and they're moving to the Patreons of the world to really not only get value from their, audience, but to have a more immediate connection with them, which is at the end of the day, all we're looking for is, through a network is connection, obviously, unless you're just transactional, which has never been my goal. No disrespect to people that do things that are highly transactional. I mean, to be fair, I've sold a lot of stuff on Amazon that was all transactional. It was somebody finding it and then buying it, but that that more connectivity is really between them and the brand, right? And I'm just sort of an intermediary between the two. And so again, when I go back to thinking about getting value from the audience, to me, it's more about connection and adding value to their lives, because through their lives and adding value to it, it'll indirectly come back to me. You also have to recognize that everybody that's in that loop, everybody that's in your swarm, also is the queen bee of their life or king bee of their life, right? So the second you approach them to have a conversation with them, you have to recognize that you're in their hive now. Just as much as they're in yours, but I always approach it like, okay, I'm in their hive. How do I make this place prettier? How do I make it nicer? And so for the first time ever, I'm able to see all this hard work that I've done over the years to connect with people and talk to people. And the thing I think I'm most excited about is how do I now nurture these relationships from a sort of a CRM perspective, so that it's not just transactional. It's not just me saying, hey, thinking of you, happy holidays. It's more so like, hey, we talked at this moment. You have kids, they're getting older. Like my son just got into college. Like I feel like these are the things where we can use technology to create human connection that is authentic. All I come back to is talking to people and creating connection. And so being able to visualize that with the swarm, I think is the coolest piece of technology I've seen in so long, because I think everybody wants to be a connector. Everybody wants to, you know, be able to call a person when they, have a question, or they have to have a go-to person for this, that, or the other. But it gets lost in the madness. I find if it's not your neighbor or someone you work with, you don't talk to them. And it's really sad. And I feel like we can use tools like this to not only create more meaningful connections from a business sense, but I think from a personal sense and a familiar sense. And so I'm super excited to see everywhere it goes.